All right, this is Matt Mrozek. This will be work in progress number 2 on the Hellboys that I'm going to be doing, kind of getting a head started on while I'm waiting for parts of the spray booth. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get the legs pinned and epoxied. So what I have out right now is over here I've got this kind of what I call my pinning kit. You're going to see my phone. This has all my different size brass rods all the way to 3/30 seconds, 1/8, 2/30 seconds, or 3. What is this? 1/8, 3/30 seconds, 1/8, 1/16, 3/30 seconds, 1/8, and 5/30 seconds. Sorry. And I got blue tack in here, and then I've got just spare pieces of metal rod in there. I'm going to be using 1/8 rods on this. Got my drill bits out. So I won't be using a 1/8 drill bit. I'm going to actually use a larger drill bit. I'm going to use 3/16. And what that does is it gives me room for epoxy and it gives me a little room for error as far as getting my holes lined up. But I do use blue tack to kind of get those lined up. So on the first one, what we're going to do is I'm going to get my drill, put my drill bit in. Like that. And we're going to basically drill a hole in the center of this. And I may not even need the blue tack since my hole's going to be bigger. So I'm going to drill a hole in the center of this leg right here. I'm going pretty far. Pinning is a very messy process. That's good. And one thing about this resin that Narin uses, it smells like fiberglass, and it's kind of brittle. So have to be careful when drilling and stuff that you don't shatter, like it doesn't, because it will crack if I'm not careful. I don't know why my drill is wobbling. Yeah. It's kind of in the center there. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's why we're using a bigger drill bit than needed. And then on these, I'm just going to kind of going to guess on the center. I should be okay since my hole's bigger. Drill a hole here. And if it doesn't line up perfectly with the pin, I'll make the hole a little bit bigger. And then we'll do the same thing on this foot. Okay, that. Got my 1/8 brass rod here. I'm going to take a 3M fine sanding sponge. Just gonna sand it, get rough. Use the epoxy, something better to stick to. That. And we're gonna stick that in there. We're gonna cut it. It doesn't have to be a specific length, just long enough to, for the epoxy to bite onto it. So we're going to leave it out about 1.5 inches or so. Should give us plenty of support for that joint. Same on this side. So you can see that these are loose. That's fine, because it's going to give us room for the epoxy. So this is the left leg, or left foot I should say. And my pin is perfect. So we got wiggle room in there, which is fine. So I'm going to put epoxy in there and then I'll clamp this. Let's check the other side, make sure we're semi-lined up, and that this goes in there well. Yep, we're good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get some epoxy. epoxy, some mixing cups, some popsicle sticks for mixing, and alcohol for cleanup. So, I need my clamps. I need to get some more of these clamps like this. I wish I had more. I need to buy some more. Okay, so we're going to mix up some epoxy here. Just enough for these 2 legs. This is a 5-minute epoxy, so this will kick off pretty quick. So I'm only going to do 1 at a time. And the more epoxy you mix up, the quicker it goes off because it heats up. Equal amounts, as close as equal amounts you can. There. And also, if you start slowly, don't stir too fast, because you'll just put air into it, and again you'll cause it to go off faster. So the plan is here, this will ooze out a little bit, and I can clean up with the rag, and the epoxy will fill in any gap. So I always mix up a little more than I need, so it'll ooze out a little bit, and I can clean it up with a paper towel and alcohol. Okay. Again, I don't want to mix it too much because it's going to cause it to kick off quicker. So I'm going to put some in the boot. Epoxy is messy. I seem to get it everywhere I'm working with it. No matter how much I try not to, it seems to get on everything. I'm going to fill that in pretty good like that. I'll take my pin. I want to make sure that that hole's nice and filled with epoxy like that. And then we're going to put some on this side. Okay, I'm trying to force it into this hole here. I don't care if it gets out here, I want that. Okay, so now we are going to get a clamp ready. And we're going to put that in there. And it will kind of self-align itself. And I'm not getting any epoxy oozing out, which is okay. We're going to clamp it, and we're going to let that sit for, it's 5-minute epoxy, but it takes it really, probably about an hour to cure. So there's that one. So I'm going to put that to the side, because I want this to dry before I do the next one. So I'm going to put that to the side, and I can do, what I want to do is make sure that this guy will stand flat. Actually, I can probably go ahead and do that. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and epoxy this one too. They self-align pretty good. And I still have this epoxy. It hasn't started to kick off yet, so we'll continue to use it. Again, same thing. Generous amount. The joint. See, epoxy everywhere. Again, use the pin and just kind of make sure we get that hole filled up. I'm going to be off camera here just for a second. Sorry. I can feel this epoxy warming up, which means it's about to start to cure. Which means I kind of got to hurry on this one. Nah. Again, the key's in there very nicely, and it pretty much self-aligns. Another clamp ready here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So basically, we just need to keep those clamped until that epoxy cures. So, need to do that. I'm going to do that 3 times, and then I'll come back and show you the next part. Okay, so I was sitting here looking at this. Some epoxy did start to come out a little bit on this side of this boot. So I've got some 90% alcohol in here, just a Q-tip. I'm just getting that wet. Just going through and I'm just wiping up the excess in that joint. You don't want that, you don't want like a bead of epoxy around this. You can just kind of fill that joint, have that epoxy as a filler to fill the joint. But so I'm going to show you that. So just basically a Q-tip with some alcohol on it and going through and wiping up any excess epoxy that comes out of that joint. So nothing too hard, just kind of want to show you that if it does ooze out, take a Q-tip, alcohol, and just wipe it off to get the excess off. That's it for that. Okay, so I got the legs going. These have had a chance to cure and everything. So this guy's standing up. I've got the other 2 to the side. Clamped and ready to go. So while those are curing, what I can do now is I can move on to getting the arms attached. So again, I'll just show you how I do one, and then I'll just do the other 3 off camera. So previously, on the first ones, I epoxied and then I puttied. So I'm wondering if on these, if I just do the last one I did is I epoxied and then I went in with Aves epoxy, the 2-part epoxy. What I'm thinking I'm going to do now on these is I'm going to do in one step. I'm going to drill holes. I'm going to actually use the Aves to hold it together, which you can. It's a 2-part epoxy putty, which works. I've done it before, and it'll do 2 things at one time. It'll keep the arms together or keep the arms on. Also, what it'll do is they'll create a bead here with a putty that can go in and clean up, which will, for the most part, take care of that seam. So what I'm going to do now is, again, I'm going to take my drill bit here. I'm going to drill some holes. Again, I got this like oversized drill bit. Yeah. Kind of get it from here. And then I'm going to drill a hole in the arm here. Just like that. And then take a pin, roughen this up again. I'm just going to do one arm because it's going to be the same process for all the arms. You'll get the idea. Pin. Put that in there. Just kind of cut, kind of guesstimate how long. Up there. We'll see how long. See if it's too long or so. Perfect. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone with the Aves. What we're going to do is I'm going to put in there a nice generous amount. I'm going to clamp these together and they'll squeeze out around here. And then that'll do two things. It'll get everything to stick together and then also fill the gap at the same time. So Aves is a two-part epoxy. My guy sculpt with it, but you can use it for other things. Get some gloves on. It's quite sticky. One second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. I was being called upon it and I couldn't hear. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to mix up. Just going to do small parts of this. I don't want to mix up too much. So I'm going to mix up a little bit. Not that much. Mix equal parts. As close as equal as you can. So we're about there. And it's important, if you ever use Aves epoxy, make sure you put the correct lid back on the correct tub because you can cause it to kick off. So, and with Aves, you just got to kind of knead it for a little while until it's really well mixed together. This actually may be enough for both of these arms. We'll see how much squeezes out. Knead it up. Yeah, they suggest that you do this for about, what do they say, 30 seconds or a minute. Let's see. It just says mix thoroughly. And I think they say that you should let it sit for a little bit. I'll knead together for 2 minutes. So I'm going to go on a time lapse and knead this for a while. Okay, so kneaded this really good. It's nicely mixed, nice even color. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take some of this off. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this hole pretty much all the way up with this stuff. That way when I put the pin in, I know it's in there really good. So kind of pack it in there. So I want a really tight fit. Put this in the pin. That's good. Do the same thing with this one. All right, so it's nice and full. And then when I squeeze this all together, it's just going to ooze out and help fill in any gaps. So now another thing I'm going to do is, just to give this something that's a little more to grip on, I'm going to drill a hole, just some shallow holes, like one right here. And one over here. These don't have to be precise or anything. That. And I'm going to do the same on the arm. Just shallow holes, don't have to be real deep. So now, basically that just creates additional places for the putty to grip. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to kind of pack it down in there too, in that hole. It's going to be kind of messy at first. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. basically this is just creating like two kind of keys or plugs out of this Aves. Because when this stuff dries, when this has cured for 24 hours, it's rock solid. Okay. So I'm gonna stick my pin in there. And I'm gonna put a little extra putty here. A little here. And I'm gonna create a couple of little snakes of it for here. And here. Now a lot of this should squeeze out when I clamp this. That's the plan. Okay, so now we're gonna put this here. And then we're gonna get a clamp. Is this clamp not long enough? It might not be. Alright, may have to grab one off of these legs. I should have probably bought another large clamp. Let's see if this is going to be. Nope. Let's see. It's okay, I want to change something anyway. I want to take some of this putty and actually put it down here. Because the seam for the under the arm is actually down here. I guess the body. There's another thing why this Aves is good, because you have a long working time. Basically like 3 hours to work with it before it starts to really kind of solidify. So really don't have to worry about going too fast on this. I mixed up quite a bit more than I need, but I really want a good amount of this to squeeze out for me to then clean up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take one of the clamps off one of these first legs. And I'm going to clamp this, get a good amount of fusing, which is what I want. It didn't go more this way. The trick is to get it clamped in the right, get the right angle. There we go. Not quite. trying to get it so it's against the body, but not too far spread out over here. Maybe better do it this way. Just trying to find the right angle to clamp this to get the best effect. Oops. Clamp slipped. Okay, that's pretty good right there, actually. So now I got all this putty using out, which is fine. I'm going to take some of the excess off. And I've got some Aves Solvaset. Right here. And I've got all right, 1 second. Sorry, and some of my sculpting tools. These for smoothing out. So let me get a little epoxy cup. Got some of the Solvaset in. So Solvaset's like basically it's an Aves epoxy solvent. Kind of helps soften it up and stuff. So with that, get some of this other stuff out of the way. And between these tools and this, we'll clean this up. To a point where the seam is filled and smooth. And if it's a little off, it's okay, because I'll end up going back and sanding it anyway. I can just take my finger with some Solvaset on it and kind of smooth it out like this. And take off some of this excess, probably like right here, a little extra. So I'm going to put this on time lapse while I do this. Okay, it took about, I don't know, 15 minutes or so to get this kind of smoothed out, but using these tools and the Solvaset, just went in there and kind of made sure that this is really smooth. I concentrated more really of getting it really smooth under here, because the first one I built, I spent a lot of time trying to sand this this gap down, this seam down right here. So I spent more time around this time making sure it's smooth, and I really shouldn't do any sanding down there. And then I left just a little bit, this raised just a hair, because I am going to go back and sand this, and it'll give me some room to just kind of help blend everything together. So this arm has been pinned and epoxied and gap filled all in one step. So once this cures by tomorrow, I'll be able to go through, because I haven't done my initial sanding of the kit. which is kind of what I would normally do first. But again, after doing this kit before, I've kind of learned a few things. So I'm taking a paper towel with some of the solvents and just kind of wiping it off. I don't want a ton of excess putty on the rest of the kit. Just makes more work for me cleaning up later. But hopefully once I sand this down, it should blend nicely and smooth. So that's going to be the same process for all the other arms. So I just wanted to show you one arm so you get the idea. So now I'll go through and start working on the other arms. And after that, I'm pretty much done for the day because I can't put the head on until after this is cured. So that's pretty good. I got the legs on, I got the arms on and smoothed out. And then tomorrow what I'll do is I'll work on the head. And it's the same process as the arms. I'll drill a couple holes, I'll fill the ABS epoxy in a pin, and I'll squeeze out and I'll blend the edges, but I'll show that process too. So I'll just keep this work in progress going for now until I get that part done. So when I come back, the arms will have been epoxied on, and I'll work on the heads. All right, continuing on with this work in progress, I have all the arms epoxied and filled with putty, and they're over here drying and clamped. Those are the two for my clients. This is my personal one. I did it a little differently. I just used 30-minute or 5-minute epoxy to epoxy the arms on, and then went in and filled in with the putty. This actually takes a little longer. It's not quite as accurate as far as putty work goes, but I'm out of clamps that will hold those, so that way they're all at the same stage. All the legs are now epoxied and dry. You can see them all standing here. So the last thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to put magnets into the base for each of these, and I'll just do one again and show you how I do that, and then do the rest off camera. So I'll get the base to the corresponding kit, and first thing I do is I put it on the base and kind of figure out where I want this to stand. So what I'm going to do is I make it so his crotch is centered, but his actual pose is actually his face kind of glances down into the to his left. So his pose is actually kind of his gaze is a little bit to the left, but I want to get his feet centered, so his crotch is kind of centered on the base. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark that on the base where I want his feet with a marker. So let me get a marker here. Come down. Tripod, 1 second. Okay, so here we are. Got him kind of where I want. I'm going to mark kind of the outline here of where his feet are going to go. This marker doesn't want to work, of course. Let me see if that's something that works here. There we go. Let's kind of get a guy. I'm going to mark the spot on the front and then a spot in the back. See if I can just do this. And I'm going to mark this right here. And then we're going to mark this right here. That way I know where he's standing then on the base. Okay. Like that. And like that. That way I know where he's going to go. Okay. So now that we have that kind of marked, we can start adding magnets. In the first place I'm going to add a magnet, I think it's going to be to the feet. So down at the bottom here, and we're going to use, last time we used 1/2 inch by 1/4 inch, and I have some of those here, but I don't have enough to do them all. And these are expensive magnets. I get 10 for 20 bucks. They're $2 a piece. So they're not cheap, but they do the job. So what I'm going to do is I have some other ones that are 1/2 inch in diameter. They're a little different. So they're these kind of like, see, they're the same diameter, but they're thinner. They have like a hole in the middle, and that doesn't matter. I bought those because they were out of the other ones when I bought these last time. They're not as expensive, but they're still pricey. So just get Again, to get all those out. I probably won't use them all, but okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark. We're going to put. The thing about Hellboy is that when he's standing, he's a little back heavy. So we're going to put the magnets in the toes to kind of help him keep from wanting to go backwards. So to do this, you just can't go in and drill a 1/2 inch diameter hole, especially with this resin, the kind of resin it is. It's a good chance you can crack out the resin. But what I'm going to do is first I'm going to kind of mark where I want these on here. And these are strong. These will pinch your fingers pretty good. They won't cause any serious damage, but you could get yourself a blood blister. So I'm just going to kind of put this here and kind of draw a circle where I want this to go. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to get an idea of where it's going to go. Okay, so somewhere in there. That gives us a pretty good idea. Actually, I just thought about this. I just had a brain, a revelation. If these have holes in the middle, I can actually mark the center of where to drill. So there's the center of that one. Pretty close at least. There's the center of that one. Close enough. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start out with like the same drill bit that I had earlier for the pins, and we're just going to drill our first hole. Like that. Okay, so now before I go any bigger, what I want to do is mark those locations on the base, because if I get any bigger, it's not going to line up as well. That's where we get the blue tack in, right here. And we're going to put some on the base. Right there. And right here. And this is going to tell us where these magnets need to go in the base. And then lining this up with my marks. There, right there. I'm gonna get just a small push, and you can see there that left an impression. Let me move this one a little back a little further. Yeah, stuff gets sticky as you use it, which is the whole point. Okay, I'm actually gonna do this one again. So again, get them on my mark. There. Right there. Give a little push. And then you can see here, I left an little peg of where those need to go. And then that's where we get, where's my, this little tool that he's for scribing, and we're going to just go in the center of that peg and put a mark. And that's where that magnet's going to go. Same with this one. Right there. Okay. And that's where that magnet's going to go. So now we know our magnet locations on the base and the feet. So now I can, at the same time, drill these holes for this base. You can see my workbench is a mess. This is the messy, like one of the messiest parts processes is pinning and putting magnets in. And we're going to go deeper than I need. And then we're just kind of move up in drill bit size. That was 3/16. I'm going to go ahead and move up 2 sizes for now. Guys, do not ride those on the side. You know that. Now we're going to continue. That. That. And now we're going to move up to a 1/4 inch. Moving up to the next size, 5/16. If you try to do this all at once, you would crack the resin. I've done that before. It's not fun. And then the next size, 3/8. And we'll have one more than 1/2 inch. And doing it with a hand drill, it wobbles a little bit. So the hole's not exactly perfectly round, but that's okay. So by the time I'm done with it, you won't be able to see where the magnets are anyway. So what I think I'm going to do for these kits is I'm going to kind of make the polarity different on all of them so I know which base goes to which kit. Now up to 1/2 inch. This bit's a little dull. It's been used and abused over the year. That. It's a messy process. All right. Now we got all those drilled. Messy, messy, messy. The vacuum tonight for sure. Now what we can do is, so I've got some super glue out here. I did have it. Where'd it go? Right here. I need some talcum powder. And some more popsicle sticks. There. And our magnets. So, how many of these big ones that I have got? 1, 2. Okay, so I'm going to use the big ones for my clients' kits, and I'll use the smaller ones for mine, since this is my personal piece. So, I'm going to use these big ones right here. More holding power. And we're going to put them in the feet first. So, it's a pretty tight fit right now. I wouldn't mind it being just a slightly looser fit for the way I do this. Still a little tight. Don't want it that tight for now. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down in here. I'm going to set it down just below the surface. And then we're going to do my little talcum powder and talcum powder trick right there for now. So polarity doesn't matter at this point yet. It will in a second. So for now, I'm just going to fill this hole up with some, I'm not going to fill it up, but put a good amount of medium CA in there, if I can get it to come out of the bottle. Of course, it's clogged whenever I need it. What happens? Give me 1 second to get this unclogged. Hold, please. There we go. There we go. Oops, sorry. Nothing stuff. All right. Kind of put it around the perimeter here. And this is basically just like a temporary hold for now. I'm going to put it in there. Use a popsicle stick to push it down just a little bit. I want it right below the surface, right like that. And then I'm going to take my zip kicker that I have right here. We're just going to set that in place. Now this isn't permanent yet. That wouldn't be strong enough to stay in place. So what we do now, it's got talcum powder here, baby powder. And we're going to make a little kind of paste. Just going to get a scrap piece of cardboard. So we got this, and talcum powder. So you take your talcum powder. Oops, I must have hit something. Take some talcum powder, baby powder. That. Now this also causes the glue to set pretty fast. So you got to kind of mix it quickly. And I kind of do it separate over here. So it's too much talcum powder for what I'm doing. This allows me to kind of mix in how much I want to get consistency I want. What this does is creates a very strong paste when it's dry. That's it right there. And we're going to fill it in. And when this dries, this magnet will never come out. So, it's pretty quick. And this does two things. It holds the magnet in place, and it also makes that, when I sand that smooth, it'll be perfectly flat. So there that is. So that'll dry here in a second. Set it over there. Yeah, talcum powder causes the glue to dry pretty quick. Won't be able to sand it quite right away, but okay, I'm checking polarity. Yeah, so I want let's see. Do this. Yeah, these are the same. Okay. Oops. You can do the same thing over here. Make sure that this magnet's not super tight. We're good. Keep these the same polarity for now. It really doesn't matter, but as long as your polarities are different in the base and on the feet, so it actually does the whole magnet trick, you're good. Same thing. Oops. I'm always double checking my polarities. Last thing you want to do is have to dig a magnet out of resin. It is not fun. Oops. That went a little too far. I can get it to come out. There we go. So when I pushed it in too far, I just use that stack of magnets to kind of pull it out a little bit. There we go. Just down below the surface, going to hit with a zip kicker. And then we're going to do that. Again, we got our talcum powder over here, and we're going to make some more paste. Just down here below here doing that same thing. Film that up. Just like that. And I'm going to pause and wait for this to fully dry, because I have to wait till I can sand this down to do the next step. So I'll be back in a few minutes after this is cured. Okay, after about 5 or 10 minutes, this is dried. So now what I got to do is I got to file this down so it's flat. I just got a big old file here. It doesn't have to be real smooth. I mean, it has to be smooth, but it doesn't be like I don't have to worry about sanding like to a really fine grit yet. Now, with the magnet, it's gonna be tricky. It kind of sucks it down since this is metal and it's a magnet. So I'm just gonna file this down. Put this on time lapse while I do that. Okay, so those are sanded smooth. They'll get a little bit of putty work later because I got some little air pockets and there's a little discrepancy down here in the heel, so I'll do some putty work on those later. But now what we can do is we can put the magnets in the base. And pretty simple. Hopefully my holes will line up. And get 2 more of the big magnets. Where'd they go? Here they are. Just like this. And we're going to put one on each bottom of each foot. Like that. And like that. If everything works like it should, you should line up pretty good. If they're not exactly perfect, we're okay. And they're going in just where I want them, it looks like. Actually, yeah, I think we're good. Okay. So what I'm going to do is going to do the same thing I did earlier. I'm going to put some glue in here. Like I did on the feet. Just going around the perimeter. Like that. I'll make sure I keep my polarity straight so I know that this part right here, I'm going to put a little dot on it. That part goes down into the base and on this side. Put it in there. Again, just below the surface, the popsicle stick. Push down just a little bit. Just like that. And then we're going to hit it with a zip kicker. Like that. And that one's in place. We're going to do the same thing over here. Mark this so I know that that goes down. Put some glue on this around the perimeter. Again, this initial gluing is just really to hold the magnet in place while I do that talcum trick. It's going to go here. There's a popsicle stick to push it down. It's not wanting to go all the way, so I got to kind of act quick now because the glue's setting up. There we go. It's a little tighter than I wanted, so I had to kind of coerce it down into the hole. Set it, and then we're going to do the same trick with the talcum powder and the glue, and I'll just do a time lapse for that. All right, so now I just got to wait for this to dry. I can sand that down, and then we'll have the magnets in place. So I'm just going to pause, and because it's the same process, I'm going to sand it down, get it all smooth, and then he'll fit on the base. So when that's done, I'll come back and show you how it works. Okay, so we got that all sanded. Magnets are in. And now when he goes on the base, he's solid. He's not going to fall over. And I can actually show you with my torso or my kit because doesn't have clamps on it. Nicely done. And then this. So once it's all solid piece, he's going to be nice and sturdy. You can actually pick up the base with the magnets. That's how strong they are. So he's not going anywhere. So that's it for this work in progress. By the next work in progress, I'll have all the magnets in the bases and the feet. And I'll do the sanding on the putty. And then we'll get the heads in, do the putty work on that. And then from there, I'll decide what I want to do next. Probably I'll like pin the horns, decide if I'm going to do magnets on the hands again or not. Last time I did it, it was kind of a pain in the ass. The only problem is that, hold on. Problem is that the gun hand is so heavy. I had to use a really big magnet, and I was fighting it because I cracked out the resin around the hand and the arm. So I'm going to decide if there's another way I could do that. A friend of mine showed me actually using, this type of magnet right here with a hole in it. He put magnets in the arm, and then he put a pin in the hand and stuff, a steel pin. That way it was magnetized. So that may be a really good option. I may look at doing that. I had to get smaller diameter magnets. These 1/2 inches just barely fit into the arm, and that's what I was fighting on that first one I did. As I was cracking the resin out trying to get this in, I got it in there eventually, but it was a lot of work. So I've learned a few things from the first one I did. So I'm doing pretty good for the first day's worth of work. Yeah, I'm real happy with my progress. You know, I got the legs epoxy, got the arms on in epoxy and puttied. And I'll have the magnets in the bases and the feet. So that's pretty good for a day's worth of work. So as always, thanks for watching. This is Matt Rosick. catch you guys for work in progress number 2. See you later.